Discover the Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast, hosted by Tiffany Benitez. Here, the complexities of being a woman in the tech industry are unraveled through discussions on key issues, personal growth, and how to succeed despite systematic challenges. It's a source of empowerment and inspiration for all women at all stages of their tech careers. Welcome to Women in Tech Trailblazers. I am so excited to be back with all of you guys today. We have, as usual, an incredible episode. I'm always most excited about the people. I would say we have really great topics, but it's like the people that we bring on are not random. We always have like this amazing connection, or we're able to like somehow really connect on something amazing. And I'm like, hey, we should really make this a topic and bring this to more than just our coffee chat that we have. So today is no exception. I have Ana Xavier here. She leads the podcast space, and I'm going to formally introduce her, but I did want to just say we're super excited. We're actually going to talk about the title itself. I think speaks to how hard it hits home for so many of us, especially women. I know a lot of our audience are women and allies and women in tech, or women that desire to be in tech, but really it's just about authenticity, and really it's about us talking about all the stuff we never talk about. So today we're going to talk about what makes us different. So what is that thing? Is it whether it's like gender, race, ethnicity? Like the thing though that makes us so different is actually our superpower, and the thing we should be leaning into most. So without further ado, let me give Ana her proper introduction. She is the founder of the Podcast Space, a consulting agency dedicated to helping impact-driven women, minorities, and multilingual businesses harness podcasting as a strategic tool for growth. If you came to Women in Tech Northwest Arkansas conference, she spoke there. She is incredible. She has over a decade of experience in podcasting, radio, and digital marketing across Portugal, London, and now in the US. Ana empowers clients to elevate their content, grow engagement, and position themselves as trusted industry voices. She is known for her practical, approachable style. She helps podcasters align their shows with business goals to attract sponsors. It's great. Build trust and expand influence. Ana's work earned her the 2023 AMA DFW Maverick Award for advancing diverse voices in podcasting through her podcast, The Podcast Space, and collaborations with platforms like Riverside, Captivate, Podcast Movement, and Ecamm. She continues to make podcasting both accessible and impactful. Welcome to the show, Ana.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is always so fun when you're listening to your own life being introduced by someone else. I'm like, oh wow, like I am cool. Yay, me. You know what I mean?
I know. It's like such a different, I was on a couple of podcasts recently and where I was like featured instead of like being the one, like introducing. It is kind of odd. You're like listening and you're like, okay, I'm usually the one doing this. So no, but I am super incredibly excited to have you here. We've had some pre-conversations, and I think you just know a little bit about kind of my heart and who we are and kind of what we're doing. But our purpose is really to dig into those topics that matter to girls, to women, to, for awareness for our allies. But there's just so many things that we don't talk about, but I think are really important to talk about. And that really puts us into a place of authenticity. We all kind of define authenticity different. And so I always like to know from each person we bring on, what does authenticity mean to you?
So to me, it's to live in a way that feels like you're honoring yourself and you're being truthful to yourself, and you're showing others how to live their life in a way by, kind of just embodying that, and truly not denying yourself in any way, shape, or form, in the sense of like, having to mask or having to feel like you have to fit the expectations of others. I think that to me, that's what authenticity like stands for.
I love that. I know that like I read your bio. That's where we're like formally talking about all the amazing things you do. But there are two really amazing things that stood out to me, is that podcasting isn't just a podcast for you. It's really about voices, right? It's really about how are you using the voices that we have that some of us really don't use, and how do we use that for greater? How do we use it for change? How do we use it for helping ourselves like move from like minority to not, right? And so I really love that about you. Can you talk to us a little bit about your career journey, kind of some of how you've navigated, and what I think I love is that you're able to take two things that you really love and bring them together. Like, how are you really, bringing, everyone together, creating space for others? So talk to us a little bit about that journey for you.
Yeah. So, it kind of goes back to authenticity in a way and leaning into your strengths. I think that it has been something that has brought me a lot of joy to really live my most authentic life, but also at the same time to lean into what is kind of my strengths and not fight it. And I think that originally I was born in Portugal and I lived there until I was 22. So I went to journalism school. It was one of those things that I don't know, many of us may resonate with this. My gosh, it's early morning and my brain is like, so basically, I was one of those kids that love talking to people. But it was one of those things that also at the same time, like on Monday, I'm going to be a policewoman on a horse. On Tuesday, I'm going to be a veterinary. Like on Wednesday, I'm going to be a teacher. And you know what I mean? Like it's just like all the things, right? Multi passionate. And so journalism came around because I was like, well, I'm really curious and I love talking about people and I really love learning new things. And so I went that way. And to talk about the power of having the right mentors in place, I'm just going to like drop nuggets along the way because I think that these are such powerful things that we take for granted. So while I was interning, my mentor at the radio station was like, and you have so much energy about you. And I feel that when you're reading the news, and this was back in 2008, by the way, or 2010. Oh, yeah, that's when I graduated. My mentor was like, I feel like you have too much energy. When you're reading the news, you're holding back a lot. And I find that it would be a better career path if you were to consider something like, being a radio DJ or going into voice animation. And I was like, oh, interesting, like voice talent. And then that is such a powerful reminder that some people can see us before we see ourselves. And that mentor of mine, I still appreciate every single time that I think of him because he really set me on a path. Because in my head, I was like, oh, I'm going to go through journalism and this is what I'm going to do because it's what is expected. And at that moment, he really led with, caring and just thinking about what was best for me and not just like going in whatever. So I really, really am grateful for that. And so I went back into my hometown and I was actually the afternoon host there. I'm like, things that only work in a radio station that is like local. They were like, yeah, you sound like you know what you're talking about. Go do the afternoon show Monday through Friday. Cool. And so I was doing the morning news as well. And so it was one of those moments where I had so much fun. And the small things in life, my best friend at the time, she goes, I got accepted in a school in London. What if you were to come with me, find something, and we'll go and have a cool adventure in London? And I am not a risk taker at all. But when you're like on a buddy up system, I'm like, I can do that. And so we went, I found these like 3-month course, like advanced radio production that sounded really cool. And I'm like, okay, it's only 3 months. If I don't like London, what's the worst that can happen? You know what I mean? Like, And so I went there and I started having like all types of jobs while working on that course because I was like, I want to improve my English. I had a very good international English, but when you go into the actual like talking to natives, you go, oh, this is different. And so I had all types of customer service jobs, which I think really led me in a path of becoming really comfortable with the language. And I'm saying all of these things because these were really key moments in my journey. Because I, again, as an extrovert, I'm like, I have a great time. And it was really interesting because when you're in London, the same thing, I thought, oh, I would love to go and work at the BBC. There's all these different types of radio that I had no idea about. And it was community radio. It was online radio. They had like basically a system that would say, if you're living in that side of London, or if you create content around that area, you can have a show. So I joined a collective. I felt so insecure about my English at the time, but all of them were British. And so you can imagine how I'm like, oh my gosh, like my insecurities were like ringing all over the place. But we had such a cool time. They were always so supportive. It was primarily like we had one guy and then everyone else was a woman. So it was just a very supportive system. And then at some point, one of my friends from that show goes, hey, we have an opening in this charity that I work in, and you're so good with digital marketing and like creating assets and graphic design. We would love to have you. We really need kind of like a Swiss Army knife. And I'm like, okay, sure. So I joined that nonprofit because I really have a heart for impact causes. And so I was like, let me give this a go. So it was like a lot of multimedia content. I got to live all of my multi-passions, which is always, like very fun at a time where you realize that, oh, wow, like I'm having to figure it out on a low budget or no budget at all, right? And so many of us sometimes are tasked with so many things to do, and we're like, what's the budget? Well, it's none, or it's very limited. You go, okay, let's think creatively. And just to kind of like wrap it up, then I, classic, like met my husband and he's like, well, I'm moving to the US. I'm like, I guess I'm moving to the US too. And so I moved here, and just sometimes how for like, the 5 years that I lived in London, I really thought that I was going to be able to work in commercial radio at the BBC. And it's just a lot of competition. And I was never able to work, in proper radio, but I continued doing that online radio / podcasts. And when I was studying in journalism back home, I was already doing podcasts because that's what they didn't have, like a regular broadcasting system. So every single step of my career has been involved in podcasting in some way, shape, or form. Like 2008 was not at all like the tech we have today, right? And when I was in London, it was a different way of hosting, a different way of preparing content. Then when I moved to the US, right away there was this PR firm that goes, we are developing a podcast studio and we're growing the team, and we need someone who is kind of skilled in a lot of graphic design as well as production. So I was like, here I go again. Love that. Love that for me. And so basically I started becoming a live broadcast producer. So basically any business owner would come in and they would just talk about, the thing that they were an expert in. And us as professionals, everyone in that team was a former journalist. So everyone knew the best practices and we would guide and coach the people that we were working with. And at the time, I remember thinking, like, I really want to focus on educational content and develop something that is going to be really more meaningful. And so then I decided to launch the podcast space in 2020, right before the pandemic in January. I was like, I want to focus specifically with people who really want to focus on creating educational content or develop something that, like, through their business idea makes the world a better place. And it is in marketing what we call niching down, which is really important because you understand exactly the type of problems that people have. And so through every step of my path, I went, okay, I really enjoyed those times at working in the nonprofit, and all the skills that very limited budget and kind of being thrown in projects gave me was because no one else in my family in Portugal is an entrepreneur. So how do you figure it out as a business owner with limited budget? So I've just kind of like marrying all of those experiences and became, a production agency at the time, and then pivoted to becoming I feel like I've been talking for a long time, but I've been taking you on a journey, you all. And then just basically really focused on educational content, developing those shows from scratch, and transitioned into educational content and content strategy alone. 2 years ago, developed the coaching because I was like, I feel like the mindset. So I focus with, metrics, marketing, and mindset, because what I announced the conference, actually, it was like how a lot of the limiting beliefs that we have are rooted in basically just, all these preconceived notions, and we are holding ourselves back. So I would love to talk more about that, but I find that, like, since for the past 5 years, I've been really involved, spoken in stages all around the world, have connected to so many peers. I've been so active in bringing experts together because just like women in tech, you're doing your own thing, and sometimes it feels really lonely. And again, leaning into my extroverted self, I am an extrovert on the internet too. I'm like, I don't know you. Hello, this is me. Let's talk about potential collaborations. And so I think that in itself has been a really interesting way. And meeting people like you, I find that podcasting really enables to meet amazing people. So I think that, like, in long story, not short, that is me.
Yeah, no, but I really love it because what I think is really important is, like, you knew what you were after. You did have people that believed in you, so they were able to bring in some additional perspective of, like, you may not see these things in yourself. So hone in here, because this is where I think it. So there were people, mentors in your life that were like, hey, I actually really see these things in you that maybe you didn't see in yourself. I heard you say that typically you're very risk averse, which is very common for most of us as women, but you still push yourself out of your comfort zone, whether it be for girl code of, like, hey, we're not sending her on her own, like, I'm going, right? But you said yes, and you pushed yourself to the next uncomfortable thing, and you couldn't have ended up where you are today doing what you absolutely love, taking all those pieces that you talked about along the way and putting it into this amazing thing that you sit today that you absolutely love. You wouldn't have been able to do any of that without taking risk and without getting outside of your comfort zone. And I think that's really important, and that matters for us to really hone in, especially as women. It's we are naturally, most of us, again, there are very few like one-offs, right? Or like maybe we've done this like crazy life journey in our mid 40s. We're like, okay, I'm going to take some risk. But I don't think we're naturally born to like take a ton of risk. That's not comfortable for anyone. And so, yeah, I don't know. That was an incredible journey. But yeah, I think those points are like key. I know I also heard you mention, okay, which is really cool because I've never got to experience this, but a space where everybody that worked there were women and there was one man. And so I'd like to know, like, okay, so out of that space, like, have you experienced gender bias in any way, shape, or form along your career? Like, how did you kind of navigate that? Before we jump back in, a quick thank you to Women in Technology of Northwest Arkansas for being part of this journey. We cannot thank them enough. They continue to create space for women to grow, connect, and lead in tech. Let's get back to the conversation.
Oh, Tiffany, have I ever? Yes, I have worked in a few offices where not only have I experienced gender bias because they were like, "Oh, call me the actual producer," because I was very friendly, they thought I was a receptionist, which I can understand that, but at the same time, like, why wouldn't I be the actual producer, sir? So that has happened. I try to remind myself that, we live in a society where there's a lot of societal norms that take time to build and change. But what are the active steps that we are taking to change that, right? I did experience in some environments where there were men, but they were, actually the champions and they were very good allies and they would bring me along, especially because I sound very bubbly, but I'm not necessarily the most confident person if it's something that I perceive as like leaning into one of my weaknesses, right? Like I'm classic check on that. I speak 4 languages, yet I'm like, maybe I mispronounced that. You know what I mean? So yeah, like I find that has happened. It actually experienced more bias toward being a foreigner and the fact that they thought that, and both in the UK and the US actually, where they said, I'm not sure you're going to be up to the task because you're not an English native, even though I was fluent, right? So there's been situations where people didn't necessarily look at my skills of being multilingual and have all of that experience and being adaptable. Instead of looking at it as an opportunity to reach new audiences, they looked as kind of a problem. And so that really actually was a lot of the content that I started talking about on the podcast space in the beginning. I created a lot of assets, and this was all before like AI was a thing. But I would always like start because I started on Instagram and I created video because I wanted to create a very strong brand that is rooted in a person, right? Because we do business with people, not brands. And so I started talking a lot about like, hey, leaning into that. Oh, my English is, I don't remember what the word is. Hang on. And then would record another story. I was like, I came to me. And so leaning into that actually became an identifying element of my business. And then later on, I really incorporated that in the marketing because I have a lot of peers and a lot of podcasters that now seek me for that. So I turned that into what was at some point that bias of, hey, you're not enough, right? That's not enough. Toward that's actually the reason people seek me. And that's one of the first things they say. You position yourself as someone who is speaking multiple languages. Like even on my newsletter, I write, this newsletter is written by a multilingual, so it may include some grammar mix up. And then if you're not watching this on the live, I'm kind of like, whatever. You know what I mean? It's just leaning into that fun. And so many people have resonated with that. Peers have hired me, podcasters have hired me because like, I resonate with that feeling. And so how can we use that as a point of connection, because so many of us have felt that gender bias, that bias towards some element within our life. But it's how you turn it around or how you find new opportunities where that becomes a value add and not something that people will find as a negative.
I love that because it's shifting our perspective and our mindset, right? It's like we've kind of been fed that like these things that make us different, or and honestly, we've been fed it because it's a reality, right? The things that make us different are the things that make us insecure of like, oh, this isn't my first language, or I don't look like this, or I'm not from this place, and those are the things that kind of separate us and pull us apart. So naturally it becomes something that we don't feel great about, or we're insecure about, or like, how do I like come above that? But I think it's really a mindset shift. Like everything starts in our minds. And I think it's when we can really tell ourselves and beyond, first of all, it starts with telling yourself, because you don't automatically just believe things until you've got to like remind yourself and tell yourself and show up as such, whether you believe it or not, because at first you might not. But the reality is like those things that make us different are truly our superpowers. Like, okay, when we think about superheroes and superpowers, right? It's like these are incredible people that people emulate, people like they're exemplary, and like we want to model after them and things like that. And so we really need to start embracing, number one, understand what it is that you feel makes you different. Like again, society says a lot of things, but for you, what is the thing where you have the most insecurity or you feel makes you so different? And then start thinking about that and like, actually, this is the thing that can really propel me. I don't know. I really love that thing, because anytime we can go against the grain of like what we've been taught just because it's what we've been taught, when it's really a crock of crap, I think we really need to hone into that and start setting and telling different stories, start creating new narratives. You talk about like the narrative and like how we use our voices and how we really show up. So, okay, let's get into a little bit deeper on like this whole like superpower. Was there like a key moment in your journey? Like you did talk to us a little bit about, hey, where you encountered maybe you weren't the English native, but with regards to some moments that really made you feel like an outsider. And you probably have experienced that more than not, again, knowing that you live in a country you weren't born in. But like when you felt that way, or when someone or something made you feel like an outsider, how did you really turn that around? Like we've got this concept of superpower, but like how did you really turn that around and make that your greatest advantage? Like you just kind of talked about, like people seek you out for this now, but like how did you do that? Like how did you do that?
Well, I want to talk about this in a way that probably not many of your guests have, or maybe they have, because honestly, we think that we're very unique, and at the end, we all have a lot of similar paths or similar kind of insecurities. So a lot of moments. I find that when I was in the UK, and again, thinking about like where you are, maybe that's not the best place for you. You have to find your people. I find that having moved countries multiple times, I find that you will always find your people where you're at. You just have to find them. But how do you find them? You have to start signaling. If you're in the woo-woo, like signaling into the universe, or really taking intentional action toward showing that that's important to you. And so to me, it was, mainly in the UK, kind of like, especially in London. And again, you think like it's a melting pot, but it just, the places where I was at, when those moments would happen, I was very lucky to have really, really good allies who would like, Anna, that's absolute nonsense. You are so skilled, you speak great English, don't pay attention to them. Because it wasn't like I was focused on my insecurities for the longest time. But then when I moved into the US, I started realizing that like, okay, some people still think like that. And again, this is a span of time, right? But also really thinking through how some countries or some cities or some companies are not the right fit. And so when I moved here, I realized that people were way more open because the US truly was built on diversity. And so that's when I realized, again, having more allies even who were like, you're fine. And so I think that listening, really paying attention to what you're consuming, a lot of those moments, it's just, I don't find that there's like, to me, there wasn't a moment. It was through time consuming content that was more focused on positive mindset, reframing, and really thinking through, like, I think the more we understand ourselves and the more we understand why things happen, there is that bias, yes, but also, what can you do about it? You have agency. And I love the word agency over your life because it truly is the kind of key element that will help you change and turn things around. Because I don't remember what it was. I just know that at some point, I just realized that through having conversations, intentional conversations with people that looked maybe like me, or maybe I removed myself from those environments where I was not recognized as valuable, right? Sometimes, you can control what you can control. And it doesn't have to be hard. You just go, if I'm not appreciated here, I will just move into somewhere, create an opportunity, create something that makes more sense for me, right? And so for me, it has really been that moment of like through time, those little the podcast I listen to, the book I read, the friends that I hang out with, all of that is cumulative. It truly is the content you consume, where you put your mind in, and you create your own reality. If you're just telling yourself about that narrative that you're not enough and you're not appreciated, yeah, you're not going to be appreciated. But think, okay, who else looks like me? And this is where I'm going to plug podcasting, because I think that it is truly important. We resonate with the stories that we hear. And so if you find that, you feel like you're a trailblazer, you're a maverick, look for the people who are looking like you, or who are status quo questioners, who are trying to do things in a different way. Go listen to their stories, because you will find inspiration and you will find some sort of roadmap that will help you get there. And I know it sounds a little like baloney, but it is true. It's just reinforcing. If you have little ones, that is those reinforcing behaviors that change how we operate and how we live. And I think that is, really focusing on what you can control, and that is exactly what you can do until you realize that is natural. Like I just did not realize that I just got into there. And then again, listening to feedback from people consistently, they're like, oh, I got to you because I saw that you serve multilinguals. Not that many people do that. Or you talked about this thing that I really resonated with because it was a lived in experience and it was like maybe a fresh wound, and I want to work with you because you get me, right? And so by living my authentic self, by really leaning to what it makes me, I attracted the audience that I was craving connecting to. So that is, it doesn't have to be hard. It can feel like it's not happening right away, but that's how you can turn it around.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I heard you talk about a few things that are literally my love language. And that's number one, know your value and worth, or don't expect anyone else to, right? And then you can't control, like just because you do, you can't control whether they do or no, but you can control what tables you decide to sit at, what places you decide to show up to. Because if you show up there because whatever, it could be a job for a paycheck or whatever your reasons are of why you're really showing up there, then don't expect them to know that you know and value yourself enough, because you're still going to show up there while they continue to treat you however they are. The other thing is community, and like really surrounding yourself with a tribe of people. Like, again, not everybody's going to love you. It literally took me like getting into like my 40s to be okay with the fact that I am not everyone's cup of tea. And it's not from a like, I want everyone to like me. It's just like, I like people to be happy, and but like that's like my job is not to be on this planet to make everyone happy. My job like is to do the best I can, help as many people as I can. And for me, that's how I feel, right? We all have our different paths, but I think finding the people that truly do love you and that you truly do love what you do and what you have to offer, and spend your time focusing on that. We have like 50, my child said this to me the other day, and I think when our kids say something, there's something very impactful there. And it's like, Mom, you have like 50,000 people that love you. And like this one person did this like one mean thing, and you're spending like all your energy focusing on that. Like it doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know, sometimes it's just hearing that. It's like the perspective, like, yeah, like who cares? Like it's okay, fine, don't like me. That's okay. But I think we need to be okay with that. And we need to get there. And then we need to surround ourselves with the people that truly do. And then also you also talked about like what we fill ourselves with, like what we're putting into our brains and our bodies and who we're surrounding ourselves with. All of those things matter. So just be intentional. If you feel like you're like in a headspace slightly questionable right now, first of all, you're not alone. There's many of us that like sometimes ride that. So know that you're not alone, but also like start sitting down and thinking about, or maybe even write down, like, what am I feeding myself? What am I surrounding myself with? Like, do I have people that genuinely love me? And if not, it's okay to find new people. It's okay to find new people. And you also said you don't have to like always go. Like sometimes they're right where you are. You just got to find them. So I really, really love that. This is coming up on my least favorite part of every single episode. We are coming on the end. I feel like I could sit here and talk to you all day long because you just like, you get it. And so that's why I'm so excited about bringing you on. Again, this is a topic that the things that make us different, right? Like we just don't really hone into that. We kind of like navigate on the more highlight real things, but these are the REAL things that we need to hear. So, okay, one final question, and it's a two-part question. We ask everyone this because I think it's so, so important. Number one, what is the legacy that you hope to leave behind as a leader? And because you are very much a leader in every space you set your feet, and that has nothing to do with the title. It's how you carry yourself and the impact you leave when you're gone. So what is the legacy that you want to leave? And then the second is, if you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice, what would that be?
Ah, that is so easy because I've been talking a lot about this lately. So I don't have a legacy that I hope I get to leave because I am living my legacy every single day when I choose to be active, to do the things that bother me, that I feel like should be addressed, I take care of them. If I see, and again, I want to touch on, and I'm going to merge those two questions because I think that a lot of women, and again, we all think this, I'm not ready yet. Oh, it's not perfect. We focus on the negative. And so at every single stage, I hate the expression fake it until you make it because it removes power and meaning from where you are right now. It takes the value out of where you are. And every single step, every single experience we have will teach us something. Right. And so doing a podcast, being very visible with what I believe should be addressed right now, and doing that in the moment ensures that I don't have like a legacy, and to be remembered, like I am living that every day. And I am told, I always say the benefit of doing a podcast instead of writing a book is that you immediately get to see the impact. Like think about like maybe 200 years ago, people would write a book and they would never a lot of times get to see 1 to 10% of the impact that book created, right? And if we live our legacy today, you can get to experience that every single day and be reminders that you are changing and making the world a better place, making your world a better place. You're living to your fullest potential. And so we have to stop waiting for permission from someone else or even from ourselves or whoever that person may be in our heads, and do it now. I mean, if you were to take a micro step today, and trust me, like I am not someone who will be like, yeah, I am a maverick. Like, yes, I am every single day doing things, but I focus on if I'm thinking about telling my clients to do something or my friends to tell something, I have to lead because otherwise I feel like a hypocrite. So how can you honor that person that you're wanting to help? Whether that's, your daughter, your friend, whatever, how can you embody it? Because it's so much stronger. Also, I find about like karma, if you rack up karma points just by doing good, things will come back to you in tenfold. So why not? So that's what I hope everybody really thinks about. Like, why wait? Just do the things that you want to do right now on a micro scale. And again, if you're have all the ideas in the world, just focus on just doing that one little thing. And then you'll see, like when you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, I've done so much. So I hope that that's like the encouragement that is practical and attainable that they can take today, because I think that we make things bigger than they seem to be.
So right. Oh my gosh, there's so many nuggets. Like there's a lot of spaces I sit in that sometimes I leave with an empty cup, but I've really, really enjoyed like listening to you and just like so much wisdom and just like pouring that in. And it's just sharing our experiences, like it's talking about them. So I know your schedule is always incredibly busy. You do so many incredible things for this community. And I'm just so grateful you were here today. So thank you for joining us. You guys know at the end of the episode, Anna's LinkedIn will pop up. So please go follow her, go listen to the podcast space, listen to the incredible things that she's out doing and sharing. And as usual, thank you to each and every one of you. This doesn't happen without you. To our sponsors, Women in Tech, thank you so much. We're just grateful, and continue to like, subscribe, and listen, and we will see you soon. You've been listening to the Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast. Thanks for being here. If something resonated with you, please share this episode with your friends, your colleagues, or anyone you know that needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to catch what's next. We'll be back soon with more real stories and honest conversations. Until then, keep showing up and let's keep making space at the table.